to do something fun to start this one off since we were upside down last time, right? Hey guys, welcome to part 2 of our Stranger Things 4 discussion. I am so excited about this. Movies Friday! Yes, trick or treat trinkets. What are we gonna go see? I wanna know. I don't wanna waste any time. So we're gonna add Mike right in and we are gonna get going on this. Okay, hang on. Oh, I saw him in here. There he is. All right, techie stuff. We'll wait for that to do its magic and we'll be off and running. Okay. It showed up great for a second. I was like, ooh, Mike's doing something fun too to come on camera tonight.
Yeah, I don't know. It's just here I am.
It's Vecna in our technology.
It could be. Hello.
Hello, well, welcome back, Mike. We are ready to talk volume 2 of Stranger Things 4 tonight.
We are. I'm excited. Are you?
I'm very excited. I just this was probably a bad decision. I had only watched the last episode once until today. I just did a rewatch of it, and if you haven't watched my stories, sobbed my eyes out. So we're starting from a great place tonight. But just want to put the warning out there, the disclaimer for anybody who's watching live with us: if you have not completely finished this new season of Stranger Things, get out of here, because we are going to spoil everything for you. We're going to talk about all the things, and that is on you if you still hang out and we spoil stuff. You want to add to that at all?
No, I think you covered it.
Perfect. All right. Well, we went, almost like an hour and 45 minutes last time with the first, 7 episodes. So I just want to jump right in because I know we still have a ton that we both want to talk about. I added to my notes. So, yeah.
I've got mine as well.
So buckle up. I hope you guys are ready. And we're going to start off. So if you don't know, Mike runs a fantastic website called Hallows Geek. You can find it over at allhallowsgeek.com. He keeps up with all the Halloween horror and related news for you, and he is killer at keeping up with all the Stranger Things news. So, do you want to take it away with kind of the latest things that you've been sharing and give people a quick update?
Yeah, beyond just, these last 2 episodes dropping, it's definitely been news heavy. I think the biggest thing, if folks haven't seen, is the Duffer Brothers launched Upside Down Pictures this week. Or at least kind of formally announced it. So they essentially said that they, signed on to do more work with Netflix and kind of announced all of the projects that are lining up. So they had been talking about doing a Stranger Things spin-off series, so that's now confirmed as part of this effort. There's a stage play set in the world of Stranger Things that they're going to be working on, so that's a little bit different. There's a series adaptation of Stephen King's The Talisman, which kind of an Easter egg in the last episode of Stranger Things. That is what Lucas is reading to Max. So it was kind of a tease of that. So they're actually working on that. And I saw an interview with them a couple weeks ago. They're actually working with Steven Spielberg and Amblin on that, because Amblin's who has the rights to it. So probably some good stuff coming from that. There's a new live-action Death Note series coming from them. They're also working with the creators. If you watch the Dark Crystal series on Netflix that they did a year or so ago, the creators of that show are working with them. So a lot of great minds kind of coming together with this. So that's probably the biggest thing. They also launched a masterclass. So if you wanted to make your own Stranger Things and launch that, the Duffer Brothers now have a masterclass. You can read all about that over on allhallowsgeek.com. I did kind of a rundown of what it's all about. I think the coolest thing that's going to be a draw, even if you don't want to create a TV series, is that in the class they're going to share some behind-the-scenes stuff from season 4 and also some original outlines and things like that from when they started the show, which as a fan is just going to kind of cool to geek out over. And then even though we just wrapped the season, there's still tons of merch coming. So we got the Joyce and Hopper 2-pack of Funko Pops. They've since sold out, but you can sign up to be notified when they get more in. And it's the 2 of them.
I need them.
Oh yeah, and it's their Russia appearance. So they're in their jackets and their Hulk Hogan shirts, and Hop's got a flamethrower. So there's that. We're getting 1, possibly 2 Stranger Things tarot decks later this year. So that was announced this week. There's one of them. Yeah, I can't figure out what's going on with those. So we'll see. There's a Stranger Things pop-up book which is coming out. And then we got not one, but two Vecna figures announced this week. So Bandai's releasing a Vecna figure. And just today I got news that Mighty Jax is releasing one that's a little bit cuter. He's kind of like round and kind of anime looking, but lots of stuff going on. So you can, all of that I've talked about, I think everything except for the Upside Down Pictures story is over at allhallowsgeek.com if you want to learn more or figure out where to buy some of this stuff. But lots going on, even though we just wrapped this thing.
To say the very least, I am very excited about that tarot deck. I am excited about the Hopper and Joyce Funko. I gotta go order that when we're done here. I'm honestly like, I think renewing Masterclass for a third year to watch the Duffer Brothers. I'd already done it, but I just kind of lucked out here. But I think that was worth the cost of admission alone. So I'm very excited to check that out.
Yeah, for sure.
Awesome. Well, again, if you have not kept up with all that kind of stuff, pop over to allhallowsgeek.com. Real easy. Mike has a fantastic search bar. I'm sure if you just pop Stranger Things in there, you will find everything that he just talked about. So, and while you're there, go follow him. Sign up for his newsletter because it is awesome. It's a fantastic roundup of everything that he's covered over the past week. And if emails, newsletters aren't your thing, he does it over on YouTube as well. So just go follow Mike everywhere because he's awesome. This is now, seriously, I am a All Hallows Geek like fangirl, not just this week, always, but sorry, Misty. So, all right. Well, should we jump into our season 4 discussion, the volume 2?
Yeah, let's
Final
go.
reminder, if you have not finished, we are going to spoil things starting now because we are talking about all the deaths up top because we got to get it out of the way. So this is your final reminder. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Let's go. I don't know that we were right about any of, well, some of the deaths, but not many of them. So I guess I'll start with this question. You guys feel free to chime in the comments too as we discuss these things. How do we feel about who we lost?
I mean, it seems pretty on par with what I was thinking. We didn't lose Steve. I thought for sure we were going to lose Steve.
Or Nancy. I thought for sure one or the other was a goner.
Yeah, and I think we talked about that last time. That was kind of the vibe. Like, we weren't sure. Like, I thought Steve was for sure going to go. Yeah, I don't think it's that surprising. We knew Max was kind of a potential one to be knocked off. I was kind of bummed to see Eddie go. Wasn't expecting the Brenner death.
I wanted that just because he's so horrific, and I hate that I kind of identified with Vecna in the moment where he's like, he was just a mediocre man, like basically trying to be extraordinary off of others' abilities. I'm like, oh, yeah, that's basically it. Like, but damn, that death took a long time.
Well, I mean, you got to get sniped so many times before you finally die. All I got to say is that's a really bad sniper, apparently.
Apparently, the 80 snipers were not up to par.
Yeah, that death was interesting. Like, for me, I don't know. Like, what were your thoughts on his little speech on his deathbed? Like, did you feel that was authentic, or do you think he was drinking his own Kool-Aid till the end?
Yeah, no,
See, okay.
I absolutely do. I think he had gotten so deep in just everything that he had done that he couldn't see outside of his own BS, basically. Like, I mean, in the 8th episode, I just felt like every scene that he walks into, he's like doing this walk down the stairs and this dramatic turn, and just like, and I mean, acted beautifully, but it just like made my skin crawl because it just was the same kind of performative man that kept coming into every scene, and this is how it is, and trying to basically keep control of everything when he had so wildly lost control so long ago.
Yeah, see, that's my vibe. The Duffer Brothers, in something I read recently, one of them basically said, like, no, he cared and loved for 11 till the end. Like, that was legit. I'm like, I didn't get that vibe. But maybe in his own way, because he did cry when she basically said he's a monster. And I'm like, you got to have some sort of humanity if you're crying when she's basically turning against you. But
I guess.
Yeah, I mean, I still didn't feel it. And I love that 11 was basically like, nah, I'm not going to give you your dying wish later. Like, I was like, good on you. Thank you.
Another strong female moment where I was just like, yes, I love this show so much.
For sure.
So,
Who
okay,
else?
so I want to talk about Max, and then we'll talk about the big one. Actually, no, I'm going to jump Max on our list and go down to the very bottom. Jason, was that a satisfying death for you?
No.
No, I mean
No.
we
I
cheered
wanted
watching it, but it felt so anticlimactic after how much they built him up.
I wanted his death to drag. I wanted. Well, you knew. I told
I
you
wanted
last
him
time
to have the
how much
Brenner
I
death.
hated him. I hate. Yes, and even the Brenner death didn't drag out long enough for as much as I hated Jason. Like that wasn't satisfying. Like I'm sure being melted in half was miserable, but he deserved a more dragged out death for as awful of a human being as he was.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I was not thrilled about that death at all.
I don't know what's wrong with me, but like I have the tiniest of soft spots for Jason only because I think the actor does such a well, and I feel like I'm jumping the gun because we're going to talk about actor performances too. But he just did such a great job of nailing that like 80s TV evangelist role.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, I have a very hard time like separating that from like how awful Jason is because I just really appreciate how good he is at it.
Yeah, but he's a little too good. But yeah, I struggled with that character. Like I loathed him. Like every scene he was in, I just cringed. Which that was his job. Like let's be honest. But yeah, I was not
played it
happy.
well.
I was not happy. It's just like here's the upside down melt you in half by, and I'm like, oh, that's all we're getting. Especially since I was hoping that at the end of that fight between him and Lucas, I feel like we're jumping around, but prior to that, he's fighting Lucas, and I wanted Lucas to get kind of an upper hand more so than he did. I really felt like Jason dominated that fight pretty much the whole time, like until everything goes south. So that made it even harder too, because Lucas didn't get in, a few extra blows and take him out, and then it happened. Like maybe I'd be a little bit more satisfied, but we didn't get that. But yeah. What's done is done.
I agree.
At least he's dead.
I know. In my notes, I wrote "boy bye," because that's how I feel about it too. Okay, so I'm going to back up one on our list to Max. I'm going to state a very unpopular opinion and say that I kind of wish Max had just died. I feel like that would have been a touch more satisfying. This is all going to come out sounding like I do not love Max, and I love her character dearly. Like season 4, episode 4 is like, that was my favorite episode of the entire series, hands down, for her and just the role that she played in that. But it just, I mean, I'm sure it's going to play into season 5 somehow. And like, maybe she's like a loophole or like a connection into the Upside Down or to Vecna or something. But it just kind of, I mean, it's another death that kind of felt anticlimactic. Yeah, why can I not say that word today? Anticlimactic. Why can I say that?
We know what you're saying.
Because she just, I mean, it was like she was gone, but then she wasn't. And I don't know.
Or, well, yeah, and I feel, no, I mean, I kind of feel the same way. And I think part of it too is the build up the entire season was basically her accepting her death and she was going to die. I know we're going to talk about performances. I will say, like, her performance in that death scene, though, and Lucas's as well, incredible. But I think, so here, and we're going to jump ahead because this is kind of going into my, like, season 5 predictions. I think her coming back is going to be kind of one of those demons that Eleven's going to be fighting in season 5. Because I think, and I'm going to talk, like, season 5 predictions a little bit here. Because my thoughts are, I have the feeling that Eleven's going to be haunted by the fact that, Vecna kind of gave her that rundown of like, you did this, you did this, you did this. And that's going to get in her head. I also think her bringing back Max and then going into Max's head at the end of that episode and realizing there's nothing there, she's basically going to come to the terms with the fact, like, she brought back the body, but there's no life to it. Or at least there's nothing there. And so I think that's why, I think that's the two things that are going to be haunting 11 in season 5 and that are going to probably drive some of that. And maybe to your point, like maybe that creates some sort of means to getting to Vecna or things like that. But
that is the only reason I can think of to keep her alive, honestly, in that way. Like, I mean, it was noble of Eleven to step in and be like, no, you're not, like, you've taken enough. You're not taking my friend too. But it was kind of, I mean, too little too late. So.
Yeah. And I mean, and the Duffers have confirmed, like, flat out, like, she's brain dead. Like, there's nothing there. Like, what you see is what you see. Like, that is the state of Max. Like, so.
Yeah. It'll be interesting. We'll talk a bit more about that at the end. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see where they go with Max. Okay. Should we talk about the big one? And I have hot takes on this one too. So Eddie.
What's your hot take?
I feel like that was a very pointless death. Other than, like, I get it, like, he wanted to step up and be the hero, but he didn't need to be the hero in that moment because they had already distracted the demo bats. They were already, like, the whole point of the Metallica song was to call the bats away from the house to get the other three into the house to Vecna. They accomplished that. And him, I mean, I think it's the moment in the trailer too when Dustin goes back through to do we call it the right side up back to Hawkins, and like you just see Eddie make that split-second decision of nope, I'm taking care of this, and it's like, but dude, like you don't have to. You're good. You're fine. Just go up through the hole and you're done through the gate. And I just think that character. I mean. We'll talk more in season 5 predictions. I do think Eddie's going to come back, but I just think if that's
I got bad news for you then.
Stuff.
I've got bad news for you. Eddie's not coming back. The Duffers have already confirmed that. Yeah.
Okay.
And so I think to your point, what they've basically said is his death will have major repercussions for everybody in season 5.
Okay.
My hunch is the witch hunt is still on for the killer and Hawkins. And so my thought is, okay, Eddie's gone. Who's left to go after? Dustin, Lucas, everybody else that's part of Hellfire Club. Because look, the news was...
Mike. As a member of the Hellfire Club today, I nominate Mike to be sacrificed.
But I mean, if you figure that whole newscast that the Wheelers are watching is talking about how the Hellfire Club is what opened this pit to hell. So I think what's going to happen is once the shock and craziness of whatever's happening in Hawkins goes down, there is still probably a witch hunt on that's going to make whatever is going on in this next part that much harder. That's my hunch now that I know, like, that piece. Because I was kind of on the fence the same way too, which was like, what was the point of that other than his own kind of facing his own demons of, I ran when the Chrissy thing started. I can't do that this time. And I think it was less being a hero and more, I don't want to make the same mistake. What if I run and something goes south? I'm going to have that on my shoulders, just like Chrissy's death.
Okay, so that's thinking about it in a different way. And he didn't need to be a hero for anybody else, I guess, is where my brain's going. But I think for himself, the way you just, like the whole Chrissy thing, the way he kind of thought about it in his head was, I need to be a hero for me. And at the end of the day, like, it doesn't really matter what everybody else thinks about any of us and how we've lived our lives. It matters what we've done, what we stand up for, and, what we're proud of doing. So I guess in that way, Eddie had to do that for his own, I guess, his own self, just to prove to himself that he could be the hero that he thought he probably was, playing all the D&D games and stuff. The hero that he saw himself as through all of that.
Well, and I mean, he even said that on his deathbed. Is like, I didn't run, and he confirmed that with Dustin. Like, he said flat out, like, he's like, I didn't run. That death, like, just talking. Oh, go ahead. So it's funny. The first time that death didn't get to me, watching it the second time last night before we did this, it hit me. And honestly, from a death performance standpoint, I think his was probably the strongest. Like the choking on the blood, trying to get through the words, that kind of improvised "I love you, man" line, like all of that. Just it was probably the better death performance. And I know we're going to talk performances, but when we're talking deaths, I think that takes the cake.
Okay, so I'm seeing a lot of commentary seeing a lot of mentions in the comments about vampires. So if you don't know, and this was where my brain was going until just now, where I was informed that Joseph Quinn is his real name, right? Will not be coming back. There's a theory. So I don't play D&D, so I had to read this online and know. But apparently, in D&D, Vecna's right-hand man is a vampire, and so the theory has been that because Eddie was killed by the Demobats, and he also has that bat tattoo and some other things, the theory is that maybe Eddie will come back as a vampire in the Upside Down and like be Vecna's right-hand man in some way. I don't know. It's very basic. But that's the gist of when people are talking about Eddie being a vampire. That's the gist of what it is and why.
Interesting. I hadn't heard about that. That's interesting.
Yeah. So, let's see. I think that's it. I think the only other thing I want to add about just all the deaths is I really hated that they all happened and like at the same time, like parallel with each other. That was so freaking stressful because it just was, you didn't even get the reprieve from scene to scene, and like I just sat there and like sobbed my eyes out, I think, for like 30 minutes straight as we were going through all that. It was not fun.
And I think that's what they wanted it to do. They wanted it to hit you. They told us there'd be a body count, and there it was, all in the span of like a few minutes. But
and I think too, like maybe you had to raise the stakes that high just because of the way the episodes got divided this time, and like we really did kind of leave on a big cliffhanger where it's like, oh my God, Vecna is Henry is one, and like you learn all this, like everything starts to click and make sense, and you start to understand what's actually happening in this series. So I mean, I guess that's how you level up.
Yeah.
You trigger Miranda's anxiety and panic attacks. My therapy bills will be coming to you soon, Duffers. All right. Should we move on to our next topic about how season 4 unfolded?
Yeah, go for it.
So we want to talk a little bit just like from the viewer point of view, how we felt about that, and kind of what I just was saying, with the episodes getting divided into volume 1 and volume 2, I assume that was editing or Netflix like forcing them to release something by a certain date, but they weren't quite done with the rest of it. But how did you feel about how it was broken apart?
I was fine with it initially. I do think it hurt those final 2 episodes a little bit for me, because as big as they were, it didn't live up to the build-up and the hype for me. And that's not to say I didn't like the last 2 episodes. They just weren't at that grandiose scale I was expecting. And I mean, that's on me for kind of hyping it up to that. But to be fair, so did Netflix, the Duffers, like everybody tied to it was like, oh, it's going to be big. It's like, so we got to that part where I just felt there was so much hype, it was almost a disservice to split it. I think if they hadn't done that and my expectations hadn't been so high, I probably would have, I won't say liked it better, but it just, I don't know, it just didn't live up to the hype, I don't think, for me.
Yeah. I will say that about episode 8. I think for me, episode 9 definitely did, just because we were off and running from the get-go, and it was kind of like the battle for Starcourt Mall at the end of season 3, where it just like we started running and we didn't stop for the entire however long that was, an hour and 45 minutes. This last episode very much felt like that to me, but so I had that Halloween bro here over the weekend hanging out. We watched both episodes together, and when we got done with episode 8, I turned and looked at him. I was like, well, there's all the filler. They just stuffed it into episode 8, because it was like all these things happened in episode 8, but nothing actually happened. Like, and I get it. It was a lot of exposition, a lot of setting up for everything that happened in the last episode, but I don't know. I was very impressed by the first 7 because it didn't feel like there was filler. Especially with everybody being broken apart into different places. I think we talked about that a little bit last time too. But yeah, episode 8 finally felt like filler to me, where it's like, we just got to do all this to have the rest of the story make sense.
Yeah, for sure. And that could very well be why I felt that way. Like, I wonder if we had gotten like 1 through 8 and then just 9, that would have felt a little bit different. But
yeah, maybe. Because I mean, like, leaving it on the like realizing who Vecna actually is cliffhanger is pretty big, but like the prep for the fight, like that's kind of more exciting. And yeah, I think leaving it at that moment might have been
I
more.
don't know, maybe. Like, one of the things I haven't obviously had time to do, but I would have liked to, is now that it's all out, watch it beginning to end and see what it was like if we had got it like a normal release. It's too much damn time. But
so that was going to be my other question for you, because I know you and I have chatted about this in text messages on and off. But we both know that they won't do it. They'll release it all at the same time, or if there's editing delays, they'll do it how they did it this time. But would you prefer to have it all out at once, or would you rather have it be old school serialized, maybe like how they did TV shows in the 80s?
no, I think we talked about this a little bit last time. I wish they would, with these last seasons, I kind of wish they would space it out. And Disney Plus is doing that a lot with their shows. I don't think Netflix is going to go that route because they're the ones that created the binge model. But I do feel, and I mean, granted, I'm saying this while Stranger Things continues to dominate Netflix's top lists, but I kind of feel like it keeps it top of mind, folks. You're excited, you want more week after week after week. Where I feel with a lot of shows, you binge it and then you're on to the next thing, and people stop talking about it, and they've moved on from whatever the next show is. Now, again, Netflix has proved me wrong, because week after week after week, Stranger Things is like number one, and people are binging every season, not just this season. So maybe I'm in the minority, but I want to savor the little bit of time we have left with these people, and we're not going to get that. Like, we're going to knock it out in a weekend, and we're going to be done with it, and we'll chat again.
Yes, we will. Well, and it sucks that we have to do that too. And I know Matt Hallows, he was texting me earlier this week and was like, I can't even get on Instagram because I'm scared that I'm going to get spoiled. And honestly, like, I had the Hopper and Elle moment that got spoiled for me, because I just do it. My thumb, when I open my phone, if I have nothing else to look at, my finger automatically goes to open Instagram, and bam, my David Harbour fan account that I follow had a bunch of screen caps of that moment. And I was like, well, damn it. Yeah. Like, I wasn't even thinking about what I was doing, and I just got spoiled. And that was within less 8-9 hours of it coming out. Like, yeah. It's frustrating. I try not to be that person, but then sometimes I am that person, like today, and I'm sorry. Yeah. But this was actually a conversation I was having with Andrew from Your Best Halloween Ever as well, when I went and saw them a couple weeks ago. We were talking about how fun it's been to kind of have this gap between episodes and be in that moment of, like, because I mean, we're all old enough that we remember when TV was doled out this way, and you had to wait week to week, or wait the whole summer for the next season to whatever the cliffhanger was. And it was kind of fun, like, hypothesizing with everybody and talking it through. What do you think about this? What do you think about that? I mean, heck, even doing these Instagram lives, like, I don't know, it makes it more fun, and I don't know, it kind of develops a really nice sense of community too, just because so many of us are into it. Yeah.
Agreed.
So, all right, well, should we dig into some of the details of this season?
Go for it.
All right, we'll start with actor performances, since we've kind of talked about that a bit on and off already, and then we can go into the rest of it, because the rest are kind of smaller pieces, and this is most of where I've added to my notes. But do you want to talk a little bit? I know you had some people in mind in particular.
Give Caleb McLaughlin an Emmy now for the death scene, because holy shit, that I have raw the raw emotion that he portrayed. Either he is an amazing teenage actor, or he went to some dark places inside of himself to pull that out, because wow. And actually, I read an interview with him today. That was multiple takes. So that wasn't like one. He did that over and over. He talked about how exhausting it was to be in that place. Which makes sense, because they had to do multiple takes just of him and Max, but then there's the part where Eleven's in Max's head, and they had to shoot that in the dark room in the water. And he had to do it all over again. But oh my God, that performance felt real. Like, you would have thought Max was truly dead in his arms on set, and that was his reaction. And then the Erica help, which we have since learned was improvised, and just the panic and terror and fear in his voice in that moment, just oh my god, just
That
give that man an Oscar, or not an Oscar.
it
Excuse me.
absolutely broke me, like almost to the point where I was like, hold on a second, we gotta pause this because I need to collect myself, because it just, I mean, so damn good. So damn
Yeah,
good.
the interaction with him and Max in that scene, like that hit me like hard the first time, and I was like, okay, I'm past that. And I watched it last night, exact same thing. I'm like sitting here like trying not to cry. Earlier, I went to look at something in that scene because I was to prep for this, and I just watched a brief second of it, and I caught the part where Max is like, "I'm scared, I'm not ready." I'm like, "Oh my god, I'm gonna do it again! Quick, stop!" But yeah. So
These
that
kids.
performance is my favorite, like by far, of the season.
And I love that because Caleb has been like one of my favorites on this show, and I feel like he has been so underutilized, or just
Yeah,
kind of, a lot of times it's felt like he's been secondary, because like he's in, into the D&D, but like you can kind of see him starting to step away from that with his friends. And it was really, I mean, it's heartbreaking, but it was really nice to see him be able to have that moment as an actor. And I think hopefully have people be like, holy shit, this kid, not a
yeah.
kid. He's if he hasn't
He's a
already,
grown ass man.
21 this year. He's the oldest out
Yeah,
of all of them.
yeah.
But maybe 22. Oh gosh, they're all so old now.
Yeah. So yeah, but that's by far my favorite. And I will say, well, do you want to do one and then I'll talk another one?
I mean, Sadie, I don't like, I just love everything that Sadie did. She's another one where, I mean, I kind of feel like she's been a secondary character because she came in season 2, and just kind of the way, especially the way Max got treated in that season. I've known you can't be in our party, and I know they brought her in, and she was great in season 3, but it just kind of felt like she was meant to be Elle's sidekick a lot of
Yeah,
the time. And it was so, again, heartbreaking stuff, but it was so great to see her get that moment back in episode 4 to take on
yeah,
Vecna and be like, nope, I'm not doing this yet, and like break away. And just, I mean, I think too about the scene like in the back of the RV when they're going to the War Zones shop, and she and Lucas have the exchange too.
hmm,
And then I mean that the scene, the death scene too, with the talking about all the things, and like, take me, here's all the bad things that I've done, and just like
yeah,
listing all that out. But then I'm not ready, like she just
yeah,
that's so good.
yeah. And that was who my second was Sadie, because the entire season, because I think as an actress, she showed us the range that she has this season, because she was able to play this depressed, sad kid at the beginning, yet she could still kind of chime in and be sarcastic and quirky and kind of, jab with it and kind of roll with the guys and be funny and
Do I
goofy
get
and
one
things
of
like
those
that.
little shirts?
Yeah, exactly. Like you had that aspect of it. And then of course there's the fear, there's the seriousness. Like even, and I think we talked about this during our last hangout, like even that whole thing with like coming to terms with like, I'm going to die, I'm making peace with this, I'm ready for it. Like that whole performance, and seeing that in her, and basically seeing her assert that kind of emotion, or that feeling of like, okay, I'm ready to take this on. Like, and you see that through kind of the rest of the season after that, until unfortunately the end. But it was incredible. And like I said, that her death, I don't think it was as great as Eddie's, but hearing when she starts to panic and says like, I'm not ready, and you realize like, as strong as she's been, once she faced it, she doesn't want it. Like
Yeah.
that was heartbreaking. That I think that made part of that scene too. Just the Lucas reaction plus her part during that is just, and she's like, I can't see anything, I can't feel anything. Like I'm like, oh my god,
Beautiful writing. Absolutely
yeah,
beautiful writing. Like tugs at the, I mean, like that yanks, severs, I don't even know, at the heartstrings. So good. Rips
right.
them to shreds like the Demogorgon would. All the things. Can I share another hot take about actor performances and share somebody who I was not as impressed by this
Go
season?
for it.
Y'all are nobody's gonna know what to do when I say this out loud. David Harbour.
Are you
I
feeling
know he
okay?
is excellent. And I don't know, maybe it's just the material that they gave Hopper, but there, and like, he has that whole monologue about like I'm the curse. There just were bits and pieces of things that he said this season that did not feel as genuine. It felt like it was getting phoned in, and I hate that.
Wow.
Maybe I'm just like too blinded by my love for Hopper. I don't know.
No, I can kind of see that. I do feel his performance was well, but see, you kind of called out one of the areas I like, which is when he was on his like self-loathing kick. I did feel he was stronger the first 7 episodes when it was just kind of him and what's his name? Dimitri? Is that the name of the
Dimitri,
guy?
yeah.
Yeah. Um, when it was the two of them, like I was on board with him. I felt like the last 2 episodes were just kind of whatever. I mean, he was just kind of doing his thing. Granted, they were a little bit more action filled, but I don't know. I didn't feel it like.
Maybe it was because he was in a different setting. It was, we haven't, well, I think we've seen depressed Hopper, like I think back to season 1, kind of strung out on, drugs and booze. But it kind of was a different, like he still had, I don't know, there's that jovial, like playing off of everybody kind of vibe that he had. And I guess maybe I'll take that back a touch because his setting this season, there was nothing to be excited about. Like, you basically have been sentenced to death, and then you learn, like, oh shit, I'm in this prison, and there's a freaking Demogorgon in here with me. And now I've sentenced a woman that I love to death, too, trying to send for her to come get me. Like, I guess if I was him, I would not be excited about life either.
Yeah. No, that's fair. No, I think that's a fair assessment. I've got another hot take that I really originally wasn't gonna talk about, but I felt
I just
Millie.
said that I thought David Harbour was not great, and I love
Yeah,
him, so you can't get
I'm
any
gonna.
worse than me.
The internet's about to cancel me. I didn't think Millie Bobby Brown in the final couple episodes was as strong. I will give you L in the first part of the season, like with the bullying in California, like all of that. But and it could be the writing and what little dialogue and interaction she had. I mean, a lot of it was just let me hang out and be silent somewhere. I didn't feel it like um,
Her,
I,
go ahead.
and again, it could be the writing and the situations that she was in. I don't know. I didn't feel it as much as I did at the beginning of the season.
As you said that, I think it clicked for me. I think her character, she was not as bitchin' as usual. Well done. I like that comment. I promise I'm reading those. They're just going so fast. It's hard to keep up with them all. I think her character has had the least development over the seasons too. And like, I get that too because she's different and she doesn't, she wasn't raised in our society like like a normal kid, so she doesn't know all the ins and outs, and then she's forced into this world where she needs to know all the ins and outs. So like, I get to some degree that the character isn't going to grow because it's a weird place for her to exist, but at the same time, like I don't know.
But even without the growth, like I don't know. It's just there was something about it, and again, like the action and the fighting and all of that, I think was okay. It was just
Yeah.
I don't know.
I
Anyway,
guess
there's just
what 50% of your acting performance is floating in tanks, like.
yeah. Will 600 pounds of salt do? Like,
Oh gosh. Okay, squirrel. I tried a Surfer Boy pizza finally tonight. It was excellent. As far as frozen pizzas go, I was impressed by how much pepperoni was on mine.
oh, interesting. I don't think mine had a ton when I got the pepperoni one.
Oh, I guess I got all yours because it had a lot. Okay, so any more actor performances to comment on?
No, I think that was it. Those were my big 2.
Next one on my list. My favorite moment, I think, from the moment I waited for all season, the Jobber kiss. We finally got it. I was very surprised that it came before the credits of the last episode too. Like I thought if they had waited that long, they were probably going to make us wait till like midway or towards the end of the episode. Like I thought they were going to send us back to Hawkins with the 2 of them before we got it.
Yeah.
Honestly. So, but it was satisfying.
Your Jobber kiss was satisfying.
I love the. I mean, now that I said like I didn't enjoy David Harbour quite as much in the season, I did enjoy that scene, and I did like the writing in that moment of them like going through the list of like, okay, what are we gonna eat when we go to Enzo's, and the use your imagination. Who needs imagination? Exchange was. Guys use that line. I'm just saying, it works. It would work.
That's funny.
Any thoughts on that?
Yeah. So I mean, it was fine enough. I mean, that sounds like that was your build-up. I mean, so that was your favorite of the season or favorite moment of the
maybe
season?
not my like favorite moment of the entire series, but that was the moment that I was waiting for in this season for sure.
Got it. Yeah, I would say my favorite moment, and this one kind of surprised me. Like, okay, I'm gonna say two favorite moments. Like, I cannot deny my love of Eddie performing Master of Puppets on top of like that scene, but we'd already kind of seen that. We knew it was coming. We didn't know what song, obviously, but we knew it was coming. But that was just so metal and so badass. And I loved, like, Eddie was one of my favorite new characters, and I just loved every minute of that. And then to find out, too, that I can't think of the damn actor's name that plays him. He actually, like, learned to play the song on guitar, like, legit.
Oh, Joseph Quinn, yeah.
Joseph Quinn, yeah. So that kind of added to that. I'm like, oh, this is so rad to watch this actually be acted out. But I think like
a lot of people melt down on Instagram in the last 24 hours when that news came out. They're like, he actually played the song too. Just take me now.
Yeah. Well, and he even got kudos from freaking Metallica. Like, Metallica gave a shout out to like Netflix and and Stranger Things for using it, but then they also kind of said like, hey, like, the fact he actually played it, so that was kind of cool.
That's really cool.
But throwing that one away because that one's kind of an obvious one. I would have to say. The part where Mike's having his like pep talk with Elle when she's in the tank and basically she's losing to Vecna and he kind of snaps her out of it. I don't know why. Like I was trying to think about this the first time, like, okay, what stands out for me in terms of those moments this season? But there was just something about that. And maybe it's the buildup because Will gave him that whole speech about like, you're the heart, you're this. And we kind of came back to that where he's like, all right, man, you're the heart, like do it. And just the whole thing, he basically confesses to Elle why he wouldn't say I love you, why he's insecure. He's pushing her. He's like, I need you. You need to be here. Like, do this. Like, there was just something about that moment and that whole little pep talk that I just loved. Like, it was strong. Like, I think had that not happened, I probably would have said Will's like whole thing where he's talking about 11, but it's really him would have probably been my favorite moment. But for some reason, just that last one, once we see Mike do it, I think that was probably one of my favorite ones or favorite scenes.
That was going to be the next thing I asked you about. That was one of my extra things I wrote down. And my note literally says, Mike, too little, too late. I'm heartless. I am very over Mike. I was very annoyed that he couldn't tell Elle, I loved you. I'm still annoyed that boy was chasing down the cop car saying, I'm going to get you out of jail. And I'm like, baby, you can't even tell her that. I said this last time. You can't even tell that girl that you love her. How the hell are you going to get her out of jail? And then to me, it felt like it took him so long to get back to getting it out that it felt forced to me. But maybe, I don't know. Maybe
But even once you hear his reasoning, like,
yeah,
you didn't feel a little bit for him? I mean,
maybe I need to watch it again. And because I will say, when I was watching earlier, I was watching, but I wasn't like tunnel vision watching. So maybe I need to just like really be in the moment with that scene again.
Because I think that's what kind of did it for me is like when you hear kind of the why and like he was basically a scared teenager. Like he's like, I don't want to get hurt. I don't want to feel this pain. I'm afraid. Like I'm gonna kind of run away from this. So assuming that's all legit, like I do kind of wish he would have stepped up without that nudge from Will to be like, hey, here's you're on, dude, get on there. Because to me that was kind of a struggle in the sense that it's like, if this guy really is the heart, like why does he always need a cattle prod in the ass to get him going? Like I will say that
about that moment.
But that said, clearly the group needs that. Elle needs that. Obviously, Will needs that because he, did his whole spiel about hey, I need this. So if it works for them, it works for them. I don't know. I appreciated that, and seeing that kind of reversal in Elle in that moment, and her finally going like, no, I can do this. So, and I also thought too, what was interesting is in that scene you pick up on the fact that so Mike didn't hear any of the crap that Brenner told her, but he was like, you can fly, you can do that, you can do whatever you want. And I'm like, he's also telling her what she needs to hear because she's already heard this, because Brenner told her like, you can't crawl, you can't walk, run, you need to fly if you're going to beat this. And then Mike says that in his little pep talk with no knowledge of that happening.
That's true. I did like his line about "you're my superhero." I did appreciate that one. So I'm not completely heartless, and I see a lot of people commenting that, yeah, Miranda, they're teenagers. I need to remember that too, and how awkward I was at that age. Probably more awkward than some of them. So fair. Okay, I'm sorry. I take it back. I'll rewatch it. I will develop a better opinion about that. Please don't hate me. Let's see. Okay, so another one that I wanted to touch on really quickly, kind of more, I guess, actor performances, but I wanted to talk about Jonathan for a minute, because I feel like he kind of got a bad rap this season, and I know his character didn't really do a whole lot, but I kind of feel like Jonathan has just been consistent, and like I kept saying this when everybody was like, kill off Jonathan, we don't care about him. I'm like, this man held together his family, held his mom together when his younger brother went missing. He held his younger brother together, like when he was going through basically, I mean, now we know the mind flayer, Vecna, whatever, taking over his body in season 2. Like he's been through a lot, and like he just deserves a break. And I think that moment too, where he's just kind of that silent but steady presence for everybody, and like he may not be in there fighting every single battle, blindly like Eddie was doing, but he's kind of the rock. I don't know, to me, he's kind of the heart of the group too, in that way. And I mean, like the whole exchange between him and Will in that last episode with, kind of acknowledging everything with Will, but not actually saying it, which I thought was really well written and lovely. I appreciate Jonathan. I don't know that he's my favorite character, but I just want to show some appreciation for Jonathan, I guess.
Yeah, I've been kind of one of those people where I'm like, what is he doing? But I think you're right. He is a consistent. To me, I think he's more the rock for Will and not so much the group. Like I don't see him having as big of an impact on anybody else. Like I don't even think with him and his relationship with Nancy. Like I don't think there's not much going on there. But I think as that constant for Will and even his family, like because he is, And I think he also kind of admitted too, in terms of like not being present or not being a part of it. Like he said flat out in his little thing is like, I haven't been there, and I've either been doing my own thing or stoned. Like, he kind of owns that he's just kind of doing his own thing. So
just hanging out. Okay, sorry, I'm reading the comments. I think another one of the things we had on this list, we talked a little bit about the improvised moments that have kind of leaked since the last 2 episodes came out. So obviously the Erica help, we already talked about that. We talked a little bit about Eddie and his line,
I love you, man,
to Dustin. Yeah. And then apparently the second Hopper and Joyce kiss, like before he goes off to fight the Demogorgons, was improvised as well.
I'm convinced David Harbour and Winona Ryder just secretly have a crush on each other, and they were like, let's sneak in a kiss.
I mean, I know he has one on her. I don't know about her on him, but he has straight up said that in interviews before, which is part of why I really wanted to see them kiss, because I'm like, that's so cute. She's so tiny and you're so tall. This is going to be fantastic. So, but just FYI, if you didn't know, all those moments were improvised, and I'm sure there was probably a handful more that we'll keep learning about. So another one of the things we want to talk about, because we talked quite a bit, we could probably have a whole live just discussing the music of Stranger Things, because both of us are such huge music fans. But one of the things you put on our list and noted was kind of the shift in music in these last couple of episodes, and more so kind of in I guess we'll call it the second half of episode 9. So do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, I mean, I think the one thing that I noticed is like, one, I felt like as the last 2 episodes progressed, it felt like music didn't play as big of a part. Like there were 2 parts. Okay, so you had the Master Puppet scene, which was like epic. And then after that, you have the fight that's going on, or I guess maybe it was parallel with this. I don't know. It all kind of blends together. But there's a fight with Lucas and Jason, and he kind of breaks the Walkman, and then like that's obviously on. Like you don't have any more Kate Bush in the world. But it really felt like kind of music sort of died out after that point, or at least it wasn't as big of a plot point. It didn't seem as. It was like once we got through that, it's like okay, this is done. And that's just kind of the vibe I got. I also noticed too, kind of a tonal shift, and I went back and this was one of the things I was looking at today, because originally when I was rewatching it last night, like I felt like even the score started to shift a little bit as we got later into the episodes, where it was heavy synth like it normally is. But I noticed when you get to episode 9, later in the episode, it almost gets less synth and more orchestral, which I thought was kind of interesting. It's not as prominent as I thought it was when I went back today and watched it, so that might have been a little bit in my head. But I do wonder if that has something to do with the epicness and the shift that we're going to get into with season 5, because they did say that essentially you're going to hit the ground running with season 5. Like you're not going to have any normalcy or buildup that you're used to. So maybe that's why there's going to be more kind of like epic battles and things like that. So
okay, I just saw a really interesting comment go by from Bet on Halloween about this. Said, well, because it proved that music doesn't, I think the moment is stepping on, like losing out on the Kate Bush song, because it proves that music doesn't have an effect on Vecna anymore. He's more powerful, which is interesting to step back and think about, like when Elle is in Max's memory at the skate park, or not a skate, when she's skateboarding, we'll call it. That's not really a skate park, but and you see the DJ booths from the dance, and Dream a Little Dream of Me starts playing, and like that's kind of the intro soundtrack to Vecna coming into the snowball scene and fighting Elle and Max at the same time. And that's, I mean, yeah, I could see that being an argument that like since he's fighting over that song, like he's kind of conquering the song that initially like.
But that was his song, right? That was the Henry song, though. That wasn't Sadie's, or that wasn't Max's song. Yeah. Oh, that's right. That was the dad's song. But I feel like that played before in one of the other episodes, because you figure Sadie didn't have the Walkman on. So, or Max. God, now I can't keep track of who I'm talking about. Max. The actress or is it the character? No, like, so Max didn't have the headphones on, so the song wasn't playing. Because that was the whole thing, is they had to save her after she went under. But it's possible. I mean, it's possible that he's found. But I guess the one thing I will say is, like, Vecna could always overpower somebody in that state. That was just the way that person could get away. So there, I mean, he was still attacking Max that first time when the song was playing and she was hovering in the cemetery. Like, he was still like chucking rocks at her, and he still had the power to get stuff. He just kept missing. So I think he's always had the power. It's just the mental state that person's in is a little bit different. But
gotcha. Okay, so Bet added, I feel like the decline in music that we're talking about in general was symbolic of Vecna's power. So kind of like the music was less, and it was more reliant on kind of the soundtrack sort of music, because he was becoming more powerful. I support
I can see that.
Yeah. I like that.
Yeah, because I'd be curious to see if we see any sort of musical like attempts like that in the next season. Like, I just don't see it working now that the two worlds have kind of collided.
I mean, I think they kind of blew their music budget this season, didn't they? Like, every season has been like that, where it's just like, I would love to see how much their music budget is, honestly.
Right.
I'd also really love to see how much money Kate Bush has made off this.
A ton. There was a thing that, because she owns everything to that song. I don't know if you heard about that, but she owns like the rights. She owns like everything, publishing rights, like the whole nine. So she's making a butt ton off it. Good for her.
Don't ever give up control of your stuff. This is a lesson for two of us as content creators. Hang on to it all. Don't hand it over to someone else.
Hand it over to Instagram right now.
Oh my God. Okay. Did you want to talk a little bit to you and netted Moby's When It's Cold, I Like to Die?
Oh, yeah, that's right. Back. Yeah, so I had forgot that song played in season 1. And so I'm wondering, like, is that the death song? Like, if we hear that song, do we know someone's going to die? Because that played pretty much over everybody dying. Max,
True.
Eddie, it played over that. And it played in season 1 when Will dies and they're performing, CPR on him and trying to get him to come back. That song played then. And I forgot about that. I saw something about that online and I was like, oh crap, that's right. And I actually went back and watched the scene today because I was like, oh yeah, it's there, but it's less. You do get the lyrics in there eventually, but it's kind of towards the tail end. They used more of the instrumental portion of the song, where in this case, they used kind of less instrumental buildup and it was more the lyrics over everything that was happening.
Yeah.
So I'm like, okay, that's interesting that, like, there's two parts of that that's kind of interesting to me. It's like, one, it's still funny to me that they're using a 90s song for it when everything else on the show is pretty much 80s. And two, like, is that really kind of like the death anthem for the show? Like, if somebody's going to die or maybe even come back, because in both cases the people come back, like Will comes back, Max comes back, is that the song that's going to kind of, announce that that's happening?
Maybe. I had not caught that, but now I'm interested. I did see somebody ask. So the song we're talking about is "When It's Cold, I'd Like to Die" by Moby.
Moby, yeah.
Yeah. Interesting.
And is that the only song? I'll have to look into this. I was kind of curious. Is that the only song that's used that's post 80s? Like, I know we get older stuff, but I don't know that has there been anything else that's been from like modern? Or is that the only one?
Not that's popping to mind. I would maybe question a song that's laid over credits if there might be something more modern, but I'm not sure. That just sparked for me though. So this was kind of a conversation that I saw popping up. I think it was in my DMs with a couple different people. So it was like such a roller coaster ride at the end of this episode, like the season. And just with kind of like where it dropped off. And then as soon as you're in those credits, you start with Spellbound by Susie and the Banshees.
Yeah.
Like, and I both loved each other as Halloween music lovers. We're like, we love this song. Do you think that there's any significance to that song? Is it like a nod to maybe something that's going to happen in season 5?
I don't know. And that's what I was trying to figure out because I'm like, how does this fit? Like, one, it snaps you out of that moment because that moment's like
a very odd choice.
Yeah, so that's and even lyrically, like I kind of went and I'm like, is there something about this song I've never picked up on? And I went to look at it like lyrically to see if there was anything that stood out, and nothing really stood out. Now that's not to say there's not something there that we're gonna get, but yeah, I mean, nothing stood out. It was a bizarre choice. Now I do know one of the Duffers did want to use a Susie song instead of the Kate Bush song. It wasn't this one, so maybe that's how. Is it's like they were like, oh well, we won't use that, but we'll use this one.
Do you know which Susie song?
I don't remember off the top of my head. I know that he just talked about it. Like in one of the interviews I watched with them, they named off like the 3 or 4 other songs that they were considering using, but they both kind of settled on Kate Bush.
That's fun. I mean, I think we talked about this last time too, for sure. But just kind of the symbology of running up that hill and like the lyrics and stuff. I think that was a good choice. No, they make good choices with all their music though. We could geek out about this forever.
Yeah, I was gonna say, speaking of symbolism, and I'll keep this brief, but I did think that when they finally played the Journey song for real, like in the season, the timing was perfect because it's kind of once, and you kind of have to ignore like the Russia group as kind of doing their own thing. But at that point, it really was kind of the two groups that are like, okay, everybody's assembled. Let's descend on Hawkins and get this done. I just felt it was like too fitting because it's like, okay, you've got your two groups like going into fight, and it's like they're still far apart, but they're kind of working towards that same thing. The timing of that seems so perfect. And then that wraps, I think, that was episode 8, right? The end of it.
Yeah, the very end of it, yeah. That was good. That was really good use of that song, finally. And it's if you haven't listened to it, it is over on Spotify, but it's just a fun listen. I really enjoy it. So, last thing on our more detailed list, movie references. I didn't think to jot this down. I don't know that it was an outright, like, spoken reference, but I think the most comedic moment, maybe second to Sadie and her whole, you want me to join Hellfire? Do I get one of those cool shirts? That whole thing was we're going to leave the trailer, so I need a mask. Eddie saying this, and the Michael Myers mask that Max wore back in season 2 for trick-or-treating coming back into play, and just like him peeking around the side I died laughing. It was so perfect. And then just
The
like
thing
watching
that
him run in it too. I don't know why that tickled me, but it was so funny.
Yeah, the thing that cracked me up about that one is I was like, if I saw Eddie Munson versus some dude in a Michael Myers mask, the bright white Michael Myers mask is probably going to draw more attention than just a regular person.
I
But
agree.
whatever, it was. No, I
Well, and
mean,
then
okay.
one of my friends was DMing me today, and she's like, "Yeah, my husband pointed out that he has on the mask, but he still has on the leather jacket. He still has on the Hellfire shirt. Like he still looks like Eddie
He
Munson.
still looks like
Like,
Eddie, but with a
a
Michael Myers
really
mask.
bad Michael Myers mask."
They're like, see, look, he is a serial killer.
Point proven. Take him to jail.
Yeah, no, there were a couple of movie references that stand out to me, like the entire Brenner and Elle thing to me. Like Star Wars fans will probably feel this, but that was so Empire Strikes Back. Like once she starts realizing her friends are in trouble, it's that whole moment on Dagobah where she's like, "I've got to go to my friends," and he's like, "No, you're not ready." I'm like, this is Yoda and Luke in Empire Strikes Back. Like we're just reliving this. The dialogue doesn't match enough. I almost cut a version of the trailer where they had that where it's like your friends aren't ready with injecting Yoda in instead of Brenner. But the dialogue just didn't match enough. But I was so close to doing it because the first thing I saw, I think I mentioned that before, where it felt like we're going Empire Strikes Back, and we totally did. The other thing that was interesting is there was clearly a Halloween nod at the end when they shoot Vecna. So if you're familiar with the original 1978 Halloween, at the very end, Loomis shoots Michael Myers a bunch of times. He falls off the balcony, hits the ground, and then when he goes and looks out, he's gone. Like that was a total nod to Halloween. I haven't heard whether or not that was intentional, but it basically is that scene. They get downstairs, he's gone. So same kind of thing.
It was well received. As soon as Vecna flew out of that house and landed, James was like, he's gonna pull some Michael Myers shit, and sure enough, like, okay,
yeah, I mean, it was like a complete reenactment.
I know. I was too sad about everybody dying to be like in the moment and realize that. But yeah, that was a good one. I will say too, I feel like, I don't know if it's just like similar story arcs, but I felt like and I can't think of all of them at the moment, but just in general, this season had a lot of parallels to the Star Wars story for me.
Oh, yeah.
And I found myself kind of thinking about like the way certain lines are playing out. Like it feels very much like that. The original 3 is kind of what I'm thinking. But yeah, I don't know. So that might be some fun homework if you've never watched them or like me have not watched them recently. Go back and watch the original 3 and find some parallels between Star Wars and Stranger Things, because I guarantee you those don't.
Even the whole like thing, the whole like dialogue with Vecna where he's like, there was a point where at one point I wanted you to join me and basically take this over. Like that's Darth Vader and Luke. They're like, join me and together we'll take over the galaxy. Like it's that whole thing, which makes it even weirder because have you seen the theories going around that Vecna is Eleven's dad?
Yeah, I kind of buy into that a little bit. I could see it being possible.
So like that would make it even weirder because then it is Star Wars and you're trying to join your father. Vecna's gonna come out in season 5. No, 11, I am your father. And that's
dear God, let's hope not.
yeah, 11's gonna lose her hand and just scream no. Like I don't know.
I have seen a couple people mention. I have not seen this movie, but Red Dawn. So Diana Blue Moon Eyes says, "Have you ever seen the movie Red Dawn?" Or they wore the clothing in the camper scene. Also, Red Dawn was about the Russians coming into a Midwest U.S. town. Similarities there. So one or two other people mentioned that. I have not seen this movie, so I haven't
seen it either.
But
and if I have, it was probably a long time ago on cable, and I don't remember.
Homework for us. You guys.
Yeah, I will go back and watch
Red Dawn.
Red Dawn.
So, yeah, okay, so do we want to talk a little bit about the Vecna being Eleven's father theory? Have you dug into that at all?
I've not a whole lot. I've seen people mention it. I haven't really absorbed it, but like the gist that I gathered from it is that essentially they're thinking that somehow Brenner had Henry impregnate Eleven's mom because of the fact that he had these superpowers or something like that. That's all I've kind of gathered from it.
Yeah, that's kind of I mean, it makes sense to me. And like, if you go back, I actually went back and dug up, I thought it was in season 2. It was actually in season 1 where Hopper and Joyce go and visit Terry's sister. I can't remember her name, but basically Eleven's aunt, and find out kind of Terry's backstory and everything that happened. And essentially it's kind of, the sister is saying, I don't really know exactly what happened. She just ended up kind of with a bad crowd and these people started doing experiments on her. So it seems like the way she explained it, it seems totally plausible that Terry just signed up for these, this experimental treatment or whatever. And it ended up like, we're going to inseminate you with, and see what happens.
Could be.
We got to
Yeah, it could be. I'd be curious. I haven't read any of the Stranger Things books, but I know one of the first books that they released is the backstory of Elle's mom and a lot of that. So I'd be curious if it's canon. I don't know if it is or not, but or if there's any hints at it.
Yeah.
But
okay, the last little detail, and then we'll talk a little bit about big pictures. We'll flip over to the backside of our page here. Just dropping the phone numbers that they share throughout the season. If you guys don't know, those are all real working phone numbers that you can call. So the number on the side of the Surfer Boy pizza van, that's a real number. The number that the agent gives Mike and Will and Jonathan and everybody in the pen, that's a real number that you can call. And then there was the one, I tried the number that they called to get in touch with Owens. But I just got a busy signal with that one, and I don't know if that was intentional or not.
KGB's blocking you, Miranda.
They probably are. So, just FYI, fun little Easter eggs if you haven't tried any of those. Yes, I had the Surfer Boy pizza. I had the pepperoni one tonight. Excellent. As far as frozen pizzas go, it was excellent.
My favorite is the pineapple jalapeno.
That is still waiting for me in my freezer.
Which he made in episode 8?
He did, yes. Yeah. I don't know, 9 actually.
Was it 9? Oh yeah, it was 9.
Yeah,
you're right.
Yeah. I don't know what possessed me to buy that one because I usually don't like jalapenos, and I don't find it gross, but I would not pick pineapple to eat on my pizza. But anyway. Okay, so should we talk a little bit big picture, overall impression of season 4? We've kind of talked a little bit about our favorite and least favorite, I think, moments. So just maybe give me your overall impression of this season.
No, I mean, this is by far my favorite. I've liked past seasons, but there was so much to this one. And we talked about this ad nauseum last time about how well they handled the split storylines and the split groups. This was strong. Like I said, I'd love to rewatch this season beginning to end without the gap just to see what it feels like as a complete thing. But I think this is by far the best. I think it's the strongest acting. It's probably had some of the strongest storylines. I think the fact that we finally get some answers, which that's what the Duffer Brothers have been kind of beat up again, by fans from day one, is we're not getting any answers. What the hell are you doing? It's the same thing over and over again. So yeah, I think this one is definitely the strongest and by far my favorite.
Yeah, I think for me this season, I think there will always be something special about season 3 just because of the year that it came out, how I watched that ending, the impact that ending had on me, falling in love with David Harbour in that season. And it's just, I love the shift in tone and how it was a little bit more fun and brighter than the other two. But this one is just so big. And it has that feel consistently throughout the whole season, the epicness of the Battle of Starcourt. I felt like that was through this entire season, and this last episode of this season built on that and made it so much bigger, kind of like what we were talking about earlier. It just, I am hoping that season 5 in my head right now will live up to the hype, because I feel like I'm making this it's gotten bigger and it's just going to get even bigger and it's going to be great. So hopefully season 5 will still have all the feels and all the things that I want out of it.
You mentioned season 3. Now that we've gotten all the way through season 4, do you at any point wish they hadn't told us that Hopper was alive? Have you thought about that at all?
So I think when they rolled out that trailer, this is cemented in my brain. The trailer that Hopper was alive came out on Valentine's Day 2020. And I mean, that was a solid month before the entire world shut down. So I think they rolled that out thinking they were going to be rolling out a new season at the end of that year.
Yeah.
I also I genuinely do not know how you could have kept that a secret. I think there's too many prying eyes these days that would have spotted David Harbour on set somewhere. I know they went and shot so much of his stuff in Lithuania, but even still, you can't hide from the internet in 2020, 21, 22. It's just not possible. So I almost feel like just the state of the world forced them to put that out, because otherwise the surprise would have been ruined. And they may as well ruin it for we'll take the reins and ruin it ourselves rather than letting the internet ruin it for everybody.
That makes sense. I've thought about that a few times. Yeah, no, I thought about that a few times since then, and I'm like, what if we didn't know? How would that have changed things? Even the ramp up at the beginning of the season, getting that little tidbit of Hopper's alive. Wait, what?
Yeah. No, it definitely would have shifted things. I think it probably would have made me more invested in his storyline this season and more excited about it. I will say I still felt the payoffs when Joyce finally got to him. And I definitely felt the payoff when he showed up back at the cabin with 11.
Yeah.
Because, she didn't know that he was alive. And just the way that played out was beautiful. That was, I already said that was the moment that got spoiled for me in this season, these last 2 episodes. But, there's still payoffs with it. But
it's funny thinking about that scene at the cabin, you were talking about, when we were talking about performances that I didn't think were strong. I think that's another one where, for being separated for 8+ months and that's your father figure and she's essentially your replacement daughter, it didn't feel that strong to me. It was kind of casual, hey, how you been? Yeah. It didn't.
That's kind of both.
I guess that's kind of their relationship. Yeah.
Touchy feelings. Jesus.
But you saw how broken she was when we thought he was dead.
True.
You would think that the flip side of that, and again, maybe it's that she's this weird kid that has this weird life and doesn't show emotion always the way that we're used to seeing it. But I don't know. It just, something felt off about that. The jokes were fun. I stole your look and things like that. That was good enough. But that was bitching. But that was another one of those areas that it seemed kind of, I don't know. It just felt off. It didn't feel. Yeah.
I agree.
Well, funny thing about that scene, if you look, you can see Millie Bobby Brown's hair coming out of the back of her wig with her buzz cut.
Is that a wig? I just assumed that they constantly cut her hair super, super short, because I was like,
no, she didn't want to shave it again.
Long blonde. I don't know how they stuff it up under a wig constantly.
No, they didn't shave her head again. They actually went in. I think Netflix or Stranger Things shared a video of them doing it, but it's this whole process that they do. But yeah, I noticed it last night when I was rewatching it. She leans forward and you see hair sticking out of the back of the fake hair. I thought it was funny.
I'm gonna have to go watch that. I will say they gave her. I know everybody was like, "Dear God, Will's haircut," but that hair that Millie had at the start of the season, that was bad. I felt I had that haircut as a kid, so I definitely felt
that poor bastard's gonna have that hair for 2 more years, because if they're saying we're probably not gonna get this till 2024, that poor bastard. He's how old now? For the last a quarter of his life, it feels like. He's had that awful haircut, and he's tried to get them to get rid of it. And they're like, nope.
You're stuck with the bowl cut, kids. Sorry.
Yeah.
Okay, so do we want to talk quickly about the unanswered questions? I don't know that we have answers, but we just want to note them.
Sure.
So some of the ones that I jotted down, and we talked a little bit about this last time. There was zero resolution with, did Murray, Yuri, and Dimitri actually get out of Russia with everybody? What happened to them? We see the helicopter descend on the prison, and then we see Joyce and Hopper back in Hawkins. But what happened in between? I want to know. I want to know, did Yuri get to buy his daughter that pony? That's very important to me.
I hope they just dumped him over the ocean, honestly.
He went down with Katrinka. He probably would be happy about that. God, that whole scene at the beginning of the last episode too, where he's talking about you just have to push the right button. I was dying. It was so funny.
You wouldn't know what that was like. When he's making fun of it.
Anyway, we also did not address yet. So we obviously know kind of how the Upside Down got created, and now everything's going to get unleashed from it, and kind of how like Vecna and the Mind Flayer and the Dem Dogs and all the Demo things fit together. We still haven't gotten the answer to the question about why the Upside Down was stuck on the day that Will went missing. So I'm curious if that comes into play.
Well, and I will say the theory that I had that we talked about, I think last time, was I was like, does it have something to do with kind of like what happens in that moment to kind of trigger it? Like, does that open it up? But it sounds like that had been opened kind of prior to that. So I don't know. Like the initial gates, like it sounds like it was open prior to that, and it was just a matter of getting more out there. So
yeah, because when we open the entire series, that first scene is the Demogorgon chasing somebody through the lab.
Yeah.
So it'll be interesting to see. And then another thing that's still bothering me is what is Vecna's connection to the clocks? And this kind of jumps into our next thing about like season 5 a little bit. And I've seen theories already that I don't know if maybe the doctors have said it and I've just missed it, that there's potential to jump to 1989 in this next season. There might be like, fast forwarding of the timeline, but I also wonder if the clocks come into play with like, now I'm thinking like, okay, the Upside Down has been open, and if the Upside Down was stuck back in 1983, like maybe the world starts regressing back to another time.
Yeah, I did see the interview where one of them had said like, yeah, we could definitely do a time jump. He didn't sound confident that was for sure, but it was something that they were going to discuss because of the age change in the actors.
Yeah.
The only thing that's weird to me, though, is how do you end where we ended and then jump that far, like 3 years? Like, to me, that would seem weird.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot that needs to happen. Like, the earth literally just split open, and you're going to be like, 3 years later? Like, how? Why? Like... so we'll see. It sounds like maybe that's something they're toying with. I don't know that it's set in stone.
Well, and I will say, like, I know the criticism is like those kids look so much older than they are in the show, but like, I am willing, like, that was out of their control. We went through a global pandemic. I'm willing to overlook that for the sake of the story.
Yeah, and honestly, like, it didn't take me out of it at all. Like,
no,
they still
really
just look like teenagers. Like,
yeah,
so.
They do. Yeah, especially Mike, weird and gawky, and yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. So you had a list of things that we know.
Yeah. Okay. So season 5 knowns. Here's what we know going into it. So we know, or it sounds like they're going to start. The crazy thing about this is this shit isn't written yet. Like, that kind of blew my mind. They're starting allegedly in August. So that's the plan. So hopefully, I already talked about Eddie's death, so we know that that's done. But it's going to have significant impact on what happens in season 5. The other thing I think I already talked about too is they basically said like there's no more normalcy, so season 5 is going to hit the ground running. There's going to be no buildup. It's like you're in it, we're going 100 miles an hour. They've already said like that's pretty much how things are going to be, because you don't need all of that kind of exposition or like downtime before something else happens, because it's still happening.
Yeah.
They've also confirmed season 5 is going to be entirely in Hawkins, so we're not going back to California. We're not going back to the Soviet Union or anything like that. And they've confirmed that they're pretty sure that the series finale is going to be feature length, like this season finale was, where it's going to be fairly long. They don't think the rest of the season will be as long, but they're anticipating that last episode to be pretty long.
I mean, even with these last 2 episodes, I did not hate the long run times. Even with me saying episode 8 felt like filler, I still did not mind how long these were. It was fun to watch.
And they went quick. Like, I was surprised. Like, at least for me, they felt like they went quick. I'm like, oh, we've already been watching this for 4 hours. Like, when we watched them back to back, I'm like, oh, it's been 4 hours. Like, I didn't think it was. It felt like 2. So
yeah, I agree.
All right.
So the other thing that we were going to talk about was our score from. So last time we talked about what we thought was going to happen in these last 2 episodes, and I thought about this, but I did not get to it today because my work day took over. But Mike had some time, so you went back and scored us. I'm sure all of them.
Yeah. So last night I rewatched the part where we were talking about our predictions. So score 1 for me. So I was right about the Russia crew. I had predicted that they would not return to the U.S. in time for the major events that happened and would likely not be back until the very end of the season. And I was correct. So that worked out. I was wrong about the California crew. So I predicted that they would connect with Elle before, or wouldn't connect with Elle before she left Project Nina. So if you remember correctly, I told you, like, I saw in the teaser that played after episode 7 that, like, it blew up, and I'm like, I think they're going to get there after it blows up, and they'll be like, oh my god, Elle's gone, and they're going to move on to Hawkins and then reconnect there. Obviously, that didn't happen. You had predicted, and I don't know if you remember this, that Elle went dark. That Elle was going to basically go dark in the last 2 episodes, and season 5 story arc was trying to get her to be good again. Elle did not go dark.
I thought she was going to pull a Darth Vader.
Yeah. I mean, it would have worked with the whole Yoda thing, but and then we both kind of said Steve or Nancy would die. We already kind of talked about this, but we were wrong. Womp womp.
They're gonna
so that's
buy their RV and go off into the sunset and have their 50 children and
50 kids. I'm sorry, what you meant to say was 6 nuggets. Get it right. The 6 nuggets. Okay, side note, and this seems kind of weird considering the end of the world is coming in this, but do you kind of want them to get together? Like, get back together after all this?
I mean, I don't hate it. I had this conversation with somebody in my DMs the other day, and my response was, honestly, I want Nancy to pull Rory Gilmore and not be with anybody, because both of these men are trash. They're both too weak for her. And she, like, has her sights set on something higher than either one of them can offer her. I want her to go off and do her own thing, because she is clearly more than
Steve wants to give her 6 nuggets, Miranda. Come on.
No, it's gonna slow her
and
down.
And a camper.
No.
He's going to take her to a California beach, and they're going to hang out.
No.
We'll see. Like, I kind of felt it this season. Like, there was a part of me that I'm like, just get back together, please.
I mean, that it was very drawn out. And, like, I do think that like, I don't know how you don't go back to that, because it definitely seems like that's where we were headed, which I hate for Jonathan, because that's going to break his heart. But also, Jonathan's kind of crappy for, like, leading her on about college.
And he continues to tell that lie. Like, even when he got back, he still wasn't, like, when we got to the end. Oh, actually, that was something I wanted to talk about. What is with Stranger Things world where after something tragic happens, like, everything's okay within a day or two? So did you notice that? Like, when the California crew finally caught up and we're like, everything's hunky-dory. We're packing boxes, putting in the things. We're going to take it. Hey, everybody. Like, I'm like, holy crap, your friend's in a coma. Like, Eddie's dead. And you're all like, hey.
It does feel that way. And it also feels like, I think back to the end of season 3 with Billy dying, and how that just kind of felt like it was glossed over and like it wasn't a big deal. And obviously, like, we learned that it was, and like it definitely deeply impacted Max and impacted her storyline this season. But I don't know. I'm kind of thinking of just the way the parents treat these kids too. And I don't know if that's like, is this just how 80s parents were? Like, I guess technically, like, my mom and dad raised me in the 80s. They weren't that hands off, like how all these.
I mean, let's be honest. Mr. Wheeler is garbage. So, I mean, maybe.
Yes, she loved how when Nancy was like, Vecna showed me everything. He showed me my mom. He showed me Holly. He showed me Mike. No mention of the dad.
That's because dad is the vampire that's going to be next to Vecna as his right-hand man.
What if it is? Is that your official prediction?
No. There will be no. My official prediction is there will be no vampires in season 5.
I know that seems like too hard of a right turn into. I mean, I don't want this to turn into True Blood, where all of a sudden everybody was like some sort of mythical creature.
But I do want everyone to be a fangbanger.
Do you want everybody to be what?
A fangbanger. You said True Blood.
Fair. Man, I haven't watched that show in a while. Okay. Was that our total score? That
was the total score from what I could pick up on. We went on quite a few tangents last time, but that was what the ones of the key points I could pull out. Those were the ones that we did. So we didn't do too bad. We're like 50-50.
We did okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, any final thoughts on where we're headed in season 5? I am kind of, I don't think I've watched these enough yet to like have time to process and think ahead. So I am still undecided where we're headed in season 5.
I think I kind of spoke to this a little bit earlier. I do think this next season is going to be Elle dealing with being haunted by Brent or Vecna's comments and bringing back Max, because it ties too well together. It's like you're the one that keeps making these mistakes. You're the one who keeps doing things wrong. Like, and we already know how insecure she is about her powers and everything, really.
Yeah.
And I think that's going to get in her head, and that's going to play up. It's very clear that they were building up Will to be a key player in this next season again. I mean, we saw him kind of his story arc kind of grow, where it's like, okay, I'm telling my story of who I am, how I feel, albeit through 11. We see the conversation with him and Jonathan. At the end of it, you see when stuff goes south, he starts the hair sticks up on the back of his neck. That connection is there again. I have the feeling he is going to be a key player in this. And I wonder if our story shifts to be less about 11 this next season and back to more about Will.
That
And him being kind of a focal point of it. Yeah, and like you said, it goes full circle, because we're right back to the beginning, where it's like,
yeah.
he was the one that disappeared. He is the one, and that would make sense. Like, that would complete his story arc. I do still stand by, I think Elle has to die in season 5. I still stand by that prediction. I know we talked about that last time, but I still think she will likely die, and it's going to be one of those, I'm good versus evil, but they both have to die to like end this.
Yeah, I agree with
so
that.
that's my hunch there. But I think those are really kind of where I'm at least for season 5. And again, with not knowing what they're going to do, if there's a time jump, what's going to happen, it's really hard to say. And it is kind of wide open, because we've never had this where both worlds are essentially one.
Yeah.
So what does that do?
We've also not really, I mean, I guess we kind of left on more of a cliffhanger in season 3, but we haven't left on as big of a cliffhanger as we did, where it's like nothing is resolved and everything is just up for grabs.
Well, and the other piece that I still don't think is crystal clear is Vecna pulling the strings, or is there some other power from the Upside Down that he's just tapped into that could pull the rug out from under him, or change or something? Because you figure what we gather from him when he's in the Upside Down, when he talks Nancy through, like, this is how I became this, he basically says, like, I wound up in this other world, there were these other creatures, man hadn't screwed it up, and then one day I came across this thing, which we now establish as the Mind Flayer. But it doesn't explain what the hell that is.
No.
In any means. He just kind of reaches towards it, and it's clear he had some sort of control over it, or they've established some sort of like symbiotic relationship or whatever it is. But I mean, that could change, or that could go south, or again, he could be some sort of puppet for whatever that is. It's hard to say.
Yeah, I keep coming back to Dustin's comment. I think it was in episode 6 or 7, I don't remember now, about Vecna being the 5-star general of the Upside Down, and like basically there's still another level. And I could see that, like the way that Vecna lays out kind of how he gained control of all the things in the Upside Down too. I think you're right. It does kind of make it sound like there's still some underlying power, and I'm not clear too if that the Mind Flayer is top level, or if there's something else controlling all that. So I think that it seems too easy that Vecna's the answer, and we just have to get rid of him.
Well,
like we're gonna get dealt one more hand of surprises of like, oh shit, did see that coming? Now we got to fight this thing too.
Well, and that just seems weird. Like, just in general, that would seem weird to me, that he just showed up here and he's like, oh, I control all of you, world. It's like, really? Yeah. Like, I get you've got special powers, but I don't know. That just seems too easy, that he just conquered this entire, like, upside down universe. Like, I went to another world and now they're all my pets. Like, come on, what?
Well, and over the course of what? So that Elle sent him to the Upside Down in 79. This is happening in 86. So like the course of math is hard, 7 years, right? Yes. Yeah. So I mean, I guess I don't know.
Well,
I don't know the laws of the Upside Down. I guess that's plausible, but yeah.
well, and the other thing that's interesting too is like when you see him when he first connects with the Mind Flayer, he doesn't look like the burnt up piece of meat that he is now. So like, what the crap is happening down there that happened? So I don't know. There's a lot, and I mean, the Duffers have said that essentially everything from the Upside Down gets answered in season 5. So that's probably why we have all these questions. But yeah,
We're
so
on
we'll
the
see.
right track. As long as they don't lost us and do the whole, oh, JKLOLs, it was just purgatory the whole time. Sorry if I just spoiled that for you. Don't watch. The first season of Lost is okay. After that, it's fucking trash. Don't watch it.
What you got? What was it? Was it you that said it, or was somebody's comment the last time we hung out that it was just a game of D&D? We find out at the end it was all just a game of D&D.
I think that was somebody in the comments. I mean, there is no safe place on Earth or in the Upside Down if that is the route the Duffer Brothers go. I'm just saying, we are all coming for them.
Yeah.
We are all too invested at this point.
So we'll see. I think the other thing that's going to be interesting is I think what I talked about earlier is like there's clearly still going to be a witch hunt, and Hawkins is still mad about the satanic panic is still there. So I think that's going to play into season 5 still, even with Eddie gone. And I think that will play into whatever the Duffers were hinting at as like him being gone is going to have serious repercussions. I think that's going to come into play. And then we've still got that, what's his face, the general or the army guy who's still out there and knows obviously they're probably headed back to Hawkins. We just know he was stranded in the desert. You know, the military came and picked him up. So, and we don't know. Oh, I just thought about that. We don't know Owen's fate.
No, we don't. We don't know. I mean, it was. I think it was implied at some point that maybe he was dead, but we never. I don't know. As we have learned, if you don't actually see the death happen on screen, and even sometimes when you do see the death on screen,
because you figure he was handcuffed with that general and those soldiers, and those are who
they just
emerged.
walked out.
So I don't know if they killed him or. I mean, it's possible, but I'd be curious to see.
Yeah.
I guess that's another unanswered question. But.
So many. So many.
Yes.
Well, Mike, we have been at this for an hour and a half.
I thought this one would be shorter. I guess not.
I know. I think we had just as much to say about 2 episodes as we did about 7. So I felt like we could have gone on for another hour and a half the last time, too. So there was so much I thought about afterwards. So I was like, no, we didn't talk about that. We didn't talk about this. We didn't talk about that. Yeah. So thank you for geeking out about Stranger Things with me for another evening. This was a blast. Yeah. I absolutely enjoyed it. I hope everybody else did too. You guys haven't been reading them out loud, but I've been skimming the comments as we've been talking, and it's been really fun to see all your input too. So thank you for watching with us live and for sharing your thoughts. I've appreciated that.
Yeah, definitely.
Mike, before we head out, remind everybody where they can find you online for all your Stranger Things updates for us.
Yeah, so all of the socials, just look up at All Hallows Geek like you see here, and you'll be able to find me. So Twitter, Facebook. I'm also on YouTube. Look up All Hallows Geek. You can find me there. And like Miranda mentioned, every Friday I do a recap of kind of the top stories in Halloween and horror. So look for a new episode tomorrow. And then allhallowsgeek.com. Like that's where you're going to get all my news updates. Yeah, I think that's it. I did just launch a Discord, but I do not remember the URL for that. But it's out there. If you find my socials, you'll find links to the Discord. So if you want to join the All Hallows Geek community and chat geeky things, pretty much everything I cover, I've also got channels set up in there to talk about too. So
I should throw out
to see y'all.
With the Discord, because I joined that my first time being on Discord, so I have no idea what I'm doing. I've only popped in like twice. He also set up a Patreon where he's doing some really fun things. So come join us over there, because I'm over there on Patreon as well with All Hallows Geek. So I think that's going to be a fun thing. Go check that out and give Mike a couple dollars a month so that he can buy himself some coffee and keep all the cool stuff coming on his website.
Thanks, Miranda.
You're welcome. So. All right, and of course you can find me over at spookylittlehalloween.com. You guys know where I am and where I live and all that jazz. So thank you for hanging out and talking Stranger Things with us. It has been a freaking blast. And Mike, I will see you in a couple weeks on Midsummer Scream.
I will. Yeah, I'm looking forward to it.
Great.
All right.
Bye, guys.
Bye, everyone.